An article on BRICS written by Ottenberg in counterpunch.org, November 8th of 2024. We would like to present our channel viewers. What he says, if there is one thing the recent BRICS summit in Kazan revealed, it is that when you divide the world into the West and the rest is a lot bigger and quite alienated from the Western oligarchy. Much of the rest also wants to join BRICS. After all, it's a good ideal, a way to forge economic and political connections, to adopt sane economic policies without a bully like Washington meddling in your affairs. What's not to like? At a time when Europe has forgotten Bismarck's motto that the secret to success in politics is a good treaty with Russia, and no one in Washington ever heard of it. Going back generation to archaic American lies about bolshevism, while this is the case in the West, much of the rest has learned the value of such a treaty, and not just with Russia, with China and India as well. After Kazan, BRICS now boasts 9 members and 13 partner countries, all dedicated to multipolarity. Another key aim, according to Geopolitical Economy, October 26th, is fostering alternative economic institutions that are more representative and democratic, not dominated by the Western powers. In other words, the global South is sick of IMF and World Bank debt traps, seeks BRICS as a convenient exit from that Bolivian President Luis Arce described in Kazan as tyranny of the dollar. BRICS provides this hope because its members contain over 40% of Earth's population, 30% of global oil production, and over one-third of world's GDP in purchasing power parity reports Geopolitical Economy. G7 nations are much smaller, with less than 10% of the world population and under 30% of GDP. BRICS nations have apparently tired of the global aristocracy. BRICS original 5 members are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Its 4 new members are Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates. It recently accepted 13 partners: Algeria, Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Nigeria, Thailand, Turkey, Uganda, Uzbekistan, and Vietnam. Argentina, under certain left President Fernandez 2023, accepted joining BRICS, but reactionary ruler Javier Milei was too busy destroying Argentina's economy, which he has accomplished with remarkable speed, and he cancelled the BRICS accession bid tout dit sweet. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, doubtless under intense pressure from Washington to spawn BRICS, remains firmly on the fence. One word sums up Washington's aversion to BRICS: de-dollarization, with Russia and China in the lead. BRICS encounters its members and partners to trade in local currencies, not as previously in dollars. This weakens greenback's position as world reserve currency. With enough of that, there could be serious repercussions here in what Fidel Castro called the heart of the empire. But it's not just BRICS. 80 nations have determined to conduct their trade in local currencies. Many of these are not even in BRICS, like lots in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Abandoning the dollar has, most unfortunately for us Americans, come to be viewed as national security move. De-dollarization would not even be a thing had not the geniuses in the Biden White House weaponized the American currency like no tomorrow. Between massive sanctions on anybody Washington doesn't like and outright theft of foreigners' financial assets stored in Western banks, non-Western money managers became a little, well, leery of the exceptional empire's previously accepted financial hegemony. To listen up, Washington. The US has had a very nice deal with the dollar since the end of World War II, but now the courtesy of BRICS, most significantly, our own idiotic and near-sighted foreign economic policies, we glimpse the very beginning of the end. Maybe Trump's vow to ditch sanctions makes sense. After all, what have sanctions done for us lately besides backfire? While Western sanctions on cheap Russian energy deindustrialize Europe, Moscow sells its oil and gas elsewhere. Even Biden had to drain the strategic petroleum reserve to tamp down gas prices and inflation he caused with his imbecilic sanctions on everything Russian except uranium. No, the hypocritical US is too busy importing it like crazy from Russia. And then there is the general global loss of goodwill to sanctions and asset freezing cause the lesson nations like China draw from them. Relations between Beijing and Washington are a little tasty of late, and the mindless xenophobic morons in Congress like yammer about war over Taiwan. You don't think the Chinese are smart enough to see where this is going? That holding lots of dollars and US treasuries is huge liability because one fine day, after lots of hot rhetoric, they could be taken hostage even before the missiles fly. Of course, the Chinese see this. They are taking action. Gradual de-dollarization by BRICS being just one step. But this threat to the dollar's reserve currency status won't materialize overnight. Total foreign de-dollarization is a long, long ways off, which bestows on Washington time to clean up its act and mend its fences. After all, do we Americans really want most of the world so pissed at our high-handed behavior that it smashes the global financial architecture the US established 70 years ago, an architecture that has sheltered us as we live beyond our means? Do we really want our debts to come due while ruled by an oligarchy for which the debt forgiveness on either the individual or national level is not merely a dirty word but ferociously verboten? Hopelessly, the White House's new occupant will seize this interregnum between now and when the rest actually can ditch the dollar to advance policies that will persuade foreign leaders, not browbeat them into keeping it. Couple such policies with the lost American art of troop diplomacy on our multiple military fronts. We denizens of the exceptional empire might actually make it out the whole. Several successive Washington administrations have dug us into. BRICS is not going away. Neither is the G7. No, for the moment, it's an adversarial relationship, but that could change. Remember, as Moon of Alabama posted October 25th, BRICS is a long-term project. Realistically, despite the hype, as he observes, it won't replace the dollar, nor is it a military alliance. As both MOFA and geopolitical economy note, the truly eye-popping BRICS development occurred shortly before the summit. That was India abandoning its anti-China policies, which the US had nurtured, and per MOFA, shunning US attempts to make it a sidekick for US policy in Asia. Asia Times elaborated on October 24th, India and China have recently agreed disengagement from the prolonged border and standoff in the western sector of India, China-Himalayan border and sidelines of 16th BRICS summit. In other words, BRICS facilitated a gigantic step toward the peace between two nuclear armed nations. For that alone, humanity should be grateful to this institution, even if Washington isn't not. But maybe it's time for a different message from inside the Beltway, one that is less arrogant, no longer demands allies approach it on their knees. The world is changing, but Washington remains frozen, indeed left behind in its post-1991 delusion as the unipolar global chieftain, and its my way or the highway attitude to everything beyond its borders. This is simply no longer sustainable, just as someday soon the mega brains in the White House may come to realize that supporting over 800 foreign military bases is unsustainable. Insanity can be temporary. Reason can regain lost ground. Let's hope that Joe, we rule the world. Biden's departure from Washington, it becomes safe for rationality to return. The writer of this article, Eve Ottenberg, is a novelist and a journalist. Her latest novel is Ruby Prize. She can be reached at the...
After watching this video,
Thank you
don't forget to give it thumbs up and
for
subscribe
listening.
to our channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we post new content. Your support means a lot and helps our team create more videos like this. Thanks for watching.